finally made it to a national symposium for the AAW this year. Went down to Raleigh. Had a great time. We'll definitely go again. If you haven't had an opportunity to go to one of the national symposiums, I really recommend you do. While I was there, I took a session with Brian Horais. Brian has a technique of putting a spiral into his turning. So if you've got a vase and instead of having just a cylinder or just a smooth, symmetrical piece, he puts a twist in it. And I was very intrigued with the process. The math made sense to me, and so came back and immediately started making some of these. These are handles that have a twist in the turning. Started playing with different ways of setting it up, different ways of putting different dimensions onto the different ends. And I thought I'd do a quick video on how to do that. So here it is. All right, so we'll start with a little bit of theory and math on how we do this. Just use a piece of graph paper, a good compass, straight edge, nice sharp pencil, and a really good strong cup of coffee. So the first thing is, most of the stock that we start with is square, right? And roughly square. So the first thing I always try to do is find my center. From there, we're going to try to find what round looks like on this piece. Now when I say a good compass, I mean one that marks nice and dark, has very stable points on it, and a replaceable lead that you can adjust the depth on. Alright, so this is what round looks like on this piece. What we want to do is we want to be able to break this up into thirds. So I need to know where a third is on each of these pieces. So since I drew this circle using this radius, we're going to find a point on center, and we're going to start there. Okay, so let's grab this point right here. We'll put a mark right here and a mark right there. So since this is actually using this line through center, we can just use that point as our other third. But really, you can also just continue to make hash points, which will divide it up into 6 points. And then pick your favorite opposing 3. So here we're going to use this point, and that point. Now what that does is that gives us these radius. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make a circle inside of that. So we're going to make two circles. First one I want to make is going to be our cut line. Okay, it's a reference point that we use so that when we make the cuts, they all end up the same distance. And then I'm going to make a point of where we're going to mount this between centers. Okay, so these points are where the new axle is going to be when we start turning this. So the way this is going to work is for each of these points that we hit, it starts this way up, we're creating a new circle. Alright, and if we want to bring it to that point right there, that circle is going to look like this. Okay, and then for this one, that circle is going to look like this. And for this one, the circle will look like this. And so what this is creating, and I'll try to make this as dark as possible, is while you're still turning round, the circumference of that round is on a different axis than the original cylinder. So this is the shape you end up with. Okay, so there's your initial axis point right here. I've created access points, right here, which gives me that arc, right here, which gives me that arc, and right here, which gives me that arc. And so this is how you end up with turning a triangle. So easy, right? Now, if we were to put this on a cylinder, on both ends of the cylinder, what'll happen is you'll end up with your new angles will just cut out those sections here, and you'll have a straight line across that. Now, if we were to take that cylinder, so you've got your thirds here, and if you draw corresponding thirds here, you end up with just that triangular shape straight across. Now, if you take the same concept, the exact same measurements, but instead of allowing these to go straight across, you send them to a different aspect. So if we go same thirds, right, we'll try to make that look identical, right? So same thirds, but instead of this point, these points corresponding directly across from them, like this, we create that new axis at an angle. So we go from, instead of this being the same access point, we drop that down to here. This access point would come to here. This access point would come to there. What that ends up doing is causing that new cylinder that you're pulling across to twist across the body of the wood. And you end up with this really cool little twist. So we're going to mark up a piece of wood that we'll put on the lathe. We're going to make a couple of handles out of. So when I find center, I try to make one line long and the other one shorter. I'm going to follow that line over to the other side and find center on both of them. Same long line. This is round, which is less important, just so I know to keep inside that space. So we're going to make the same two, we're going to make two cuts, or two lines here. One is just a reference point. This reference point is how far we're going to cut into it. So when we do the turning, we'll want to stop at this line. The next line is going to be how we mark it. So if I want to make this symmetrical, I will use the same distance, the same radius for both sides. Now, since I have that on, now we're just repeating what we did on the Okay. So this is a point I'm going to use for turning. This was a point I used to figure out our thirds. So what I want to do is I want to have this exact same dimension on the other side of the blank. So we'll follow this line over here. And make this same mark. Okay, this is where we made our point. So we'll mark that off there and there. And our 3 points, which should correspond with the other side. All I'm doing here is using this sharp point to start on where I'm going to mark these. This makes it easier for the punch to find it. All right, now the important piece here, the reason I did that is when I mark these, I want to put a twist in it. So if I were to just use the same side for each of these, I would end up with simply the triangle shape. But what I want to do is I want to put the twist in it. So I'm going to start here. We're going to call this number 1. Okay, and we'll follow this line back here. So this is where number 1 is on the other side. Sorry, I'm not showing you. So I'm going to mark this as number 1. Okay, if I follow this line over here, this is where number 1 would be on the other side, and we'll bring it around a third, and we'll call this one number 1. Okay, then we'll do the same thing here. This one becomes number 2. Mark these on the same side of your point, just for make it easier to actually find it. So we'll bring this over here. That's where our number 2 is on the other side, so we'll go this way. And then this obviously is number 3. Bring that over and so number 1 will go across the body of the blank to here. 2 go across the body of the blank over here. 3 go across the body of the blank over to here. Alright, so we're going to look for the numbers here. Here's number 1 right here. Here's number 1 right here. So I have this point's coming out only a little bit, just so it doesn't dig too much into the wood. It's really just a guide. Once the ring, or once the cup starts to bite in, then it's not really necessary. So we'll set that for 1 here. Here. Lock that in pretty tight. And now I've drawn rings inside to show where we stop cutting. It's really just a guide so that everything is nice and even. raise the camera up so you can actually see, hopefully with a little bit of contrast behind it, the ghost image. Now this is going to be pretty off balance at first, so gotta watch the speed. And as you can see from the ghost image, there's a slight curve to where the pieces extrude the furthest. And you can kind of see this starting to form up. Got a lot of material still to remove. It's about 1,000 RPMs now. Alright, I'm to the line on this side, and I'm just a little bit shy on this side, so I want to keep these even, so we'll do a little bit more from the right. Alright, we're down to the line here. Alright, so there's the line that we come to an end at. You can see it's opposite of the hole, or the marker. Same on this side, we're right to the edge. So, we'll move on to number 2. And it's just going to be lather, rinse, and repeat. I do recommend you mark with a very dark pencil or pen, especially on darker wood. Alright, this side is good. You want to do a little bit of a clean cut here. to that edge on this side as well. Alright, so move on to number 3. And so now we have our 3-sided piece. This is going to be a handle for a pizza cutter or an ice cream scoop. So I pre-drilled the hole so that I can mount it on a mandrel, and then we'll just clean up the edges here a little bit. Alright, when I thread these, I like to use the lathe, the left center as a guide. Try to keep it straight. The Ruth Niles mandrels have self-tapping heads or points on them, so I really just need to turn the lathe in the right direction, and it'll cut the threads for me. Make sure you back it out and clean the threads out. Alright, so we're going to do a lot of sanding on this. It's all done by hand. You can't do it while it's spinning, otherwise you'll lose all your edges. But what I'll start with is I want to try to sort of round off these edges a little bit, so where they come to an end and where they tie into the tool or into the item that we're going to mount on the handle. A little bit more. You can still see the points that we made in the end here. Now for hand sanding this, the main thing is keeping it go along with the grain and just feel for this ridge so you don't sand it away. You can kind of feel it through the paper, it'll start to tip over. And use the, just using the spindle to keep going back and forth. This is 180 just to try to get a lot of these tool marks out. The other thing too is when you get to this edge here, you can have a sharp edge. I always like to kind of sand that back after I get the triangle shape. Alright, I want to clean off this nub now. We're going to do it very carefully. Alright, just hand sand through the grits and then put the finish on. So I've been using this technique for several months. I've been trying different things. Started trying some different finishes, doing a three-way finish, which turned out kind of cool. Also combining it with some traditional turning, so you've got a mix of the twist and a handle, makes for a very comfortable handle. Then I got a little ambitious. Tried my hand at a segment bowl with a twist on it. This is bloodwood, cherry, and holly, and used the exact same technique. This is a glued on rim, but again with your three-sided bowl. It's had a lot more planning involved. I did try to use the thirds when I glued up the pieces so that I could follow the track of the segments with the twist. Like how it turned out. Maybe I'll do a video on one of these later. So thanks for watching. If this is your first time here, please subscribe. Like this video if you found it interesting or useful, and feel free to share it. Thank you.